Hello and welcome to the Fox-Man backyard, complete with Dovey. It is once again time for food and topics. I am having a vegetarian brat and some strawberries, and I don't like ketchup, so I've got some A1 steak sauce, some mustard, and some relish. I don't have a bun, so it's on the side. And I'm having a garden salad.
I am going to be having a home-grilled hamburger thing on a store-bought bun, along with some store-bought mashed potatoes. I'll be drinking apple juice.
Mashed potatoes?
Not mashed potatoes, potato salad, which is better than mashed potatoes.
Oh my god!
I'm just kidding, I like both.
You're Irish!
Equally.
You're supposed to like all potatoes.
I know, I like them both equally.
I love all potatoes equally.
We're also going to be having some dill Havarti and Irish cheddar.
Yum. Okay, so we're going to jump right in with a complicated and polarizing topic to start out with, because why not?
Sure.
We never said we were going to talk about fluffy puppies and hey, stop trying to Valk's potato salad. Let's talk about climate change. Because it's everywhere around us, you know, I think we're back in a drought.
No, we just got out of one.
Yep, yeah. We got a lot of snow over the winter, that helped, but we haven't really had much rain in the last month, if any. I mean, on Father's Day we got a little bit of sprinkling. It was supposed to have rained like days before and it didn't. And everything is so dry. I don't want any of that today. It did not agree with my taste buds the other day, so I'm just going to give the cheddar a rest.
In that case, I'll have some.
The good thing about that is that the Creeping Charlie doesn't like being so dry. So a lot of the big dead patches are where there were huge patches of Creeping Charlie.
That's like the purple flowery
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, no, I
There was a little in the shade.
Those look kind of nice, but I know they're invasive, which is bad.
Yep. The thing I don't like about them is, one, it smells bad. It's in the mint family, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, I love the smell, and I'm like, whoa. When you crush the leaves, it's just unpleasant for me.
And guess what happens when you step on it? The leaves crush.
Yep. And then if you have bees on them, I know they're a great, early food for bees, but I have stepped on a couple of bees and wasps and things, and I'm allergic, and I'm not allowed to go barefoot anymore, but I still am not real excited about having squashed bees and wasps. So yeah, we're seeing the effects of climate change. There are places where the water is low. You get more extreme weather. We get some cold stuff way earlier than we're supposed to. We get some warm stuff way earlier than we're supposed to. So it really throws off everything. And I'm pretty sure it's making farmers' lives really difficult because, they can't plant too early. They have to be careful not to plant too early or the seeds get frozen out for most things. But we're getting to a point where, it sometimes gets really cold in mid-October because we get more extreme shifts in temperature. So I think we're seeing a narrowing of our growing season. And that was delightful. We in Minnesota already have a low or a short growing season. So we in Minnesota also get extremes. We can get 30 or 40 degrees Fahrenheit below zero in the winter. And we can get over 100 degrees with really high humidity in the summer.
Hey, around a year ago, probably tomorrow, or today as well, I remember building catapults in near 100-degree, very humid weather at Grey
yeah,
Wolf.
that's right. When you were at Grey
fun.
Wolf, it was really hot, dangerously hot that week.
Yeah, and they still had us make full-sized catapults.
What are your thoughts, just general thoughts on climate change?
Well, it's certainly bad. I think we could, this whole drought thing, I think we could, if we really looked into it when the snow was melting, and we looked at what they expected the Mississippi's level to be versus what it actually was, and how short it was there for, I think we could have foreseen things going how they are if we really looked into it, because that could have been a sign. Which
you're right, because stuff absorbed the water,
Yeah.
so we didn't end up with as much in the river.
Climate change is bad for, well, breathing.
Mm-hmm. We aren't quite in air alert yet, but our air quality is getting not so ideal again.
It is no longer safe to catch raindrops or snowflakes in your mouth.
Well, and you know, we're getting these wildfires because it's dry in places, and those are bad for a couple of reasons. They add pollutants to the air, and then they reduce the number of trees we have. And trees are great carbon banks. They absorb carbon and hold on to it for long periods of time, releasing it when they decompose or burn. So, you know, those burning trees are releasing a bunch more carbon.
Mm-hmm.
What could we do to limit or reduce climate change? I mean, obviously we can't go back in time and say, hey, maybe don't screw up the world quite so much. You know, mess with our planet. But what could we do now? What could be done now? If governments and people were willing to cooperate. Because of course we still have some people who think that climate change is a myth and is
A credible person from every single party to step forward and just basically give a PSA on climate change. And this is everyone.
Yeah, first we need to recognize that it's a real thing and start trying to address it, teach about it so that people grow up knowing that it exists. And I would really love to see laws that crack down on disinformation, which is the intentional spread of lies. But it would be good if we could drive our cars less.
Yeah.
So public transportation is one of the things that can have the most readily noticeable impact. You know, we all drive everywhere. We're Americans. We drive everywhere. We're supposed to drive everywhere. We have to have, 2.5 cars per household.
Not everywhere does that. Actually, America is a very rare case of a nation that does that. Everywhere else you can walk wherever you need to go. And if you need to go far, buses are free.
Or they're available. And they have... Yeah. You don't have to walk super far in order to get to them. When I was in Germany, when I was in high school, I was so amazed by the public transportation. They had streetcars and buses and trains, and they all were coordinated to work together. So it wasn't like, well, this city has its transportation and it doesn't coordinate at all with the, state's transportation, much less the country's transportation. It all worked together. So you never had an extremely long wait. Like if you got off of a streetcar and you went to a bus, you didn't have a ridiculously long wait. If you wanted to go get on a train, it didn't drop you off 8 miles away from the train. Now obviously the train wasn't going to have as many stops as frequently as like the bus and the streetcar. Those are designed for short trips, frequent short trips, but they had different levels of train. They had the trains that stopped in all of the towns along the way, and then they had the limited stop kind of trains, like if you were going from Munich to Austria, and it went much faster. And this doesn't mean that all of their trains and things were the most modern technology.
Yeah, no.
So they didn't have their trains more closely resembled American trains than say Japanese trains.
Oh yeah, no. Japan has a very Japan's also
China also has
a very advanced public transport system.
But I would love it if I didn't have to drive. But our public transportation is almost developed intentionally to be inconvenient. And there's no other way that you could look at our transportation and say, oh yeah, this is logical. There's nothing logical about it. The 64 at the end of the day is always crammed with people. Why are there not more of them?
Because they need people to get cars to fuel their economy.
And Steve and I very intentionally chose to not have the commuter lifestyle. I was
More
already
expensive.
doing, it is. We were able to be a one-car household for a really long time.
We probably could have been a one-car household even longer,
Mm-hmm.
but we got scared because the Aztec had a problem while we were on our way.
It had several significant problems, and you know, it's at a point where something could go wrong at any time. It was really after I lost my job at the clinic and started
fair.
having to go places to work,
I remember
going
that.
to interviews, because again, the bus and the train are not always punctual, not always efficient. I did a lot of bus and train during that time.
Problem is still American. While it's great, American public transport is still garbage.
Oh yeah, it's not great. It exists. But being on the 64 at the end of the day when everyone's getting off work, it's crammed. I mean, it's standing room only, literally. And that's not that is not a respectful way to transport people. It's not a comfortable way to be transported.
How would you feel if you were treated like that?
So, you know, again, I think this discourages people from taking the bus. I do like the train.
And instead of being discouraged, I think there should be, like, a lot of the times in scenarios where it's like, oh, go into hiding, oh, be discouraged. I think instead, for things to actually change, there has to be, instead of like waiting a certain thing out, you gotta actively do stuff.
That is actually a really good point. I think a lot of people are waiting for the government to make some decisions, waiting for the weather to get bad enough to try to make a change.
I am, for one, part of the community that thinks, hey, take one more step in the wrong direction, it's guillotine time. Because, I mean...
We don't have a guillotine. But
we don't have a guillotine, but we could do that.
But we need to remember that our government works for us, you know, we the people, and we need to hold them accountable, and we need to make them move. We need to make them act.
It is very difficult to say that they work for us when they're actively working against us at times.
A lot of times they're working for big billionaires. I grew up without air conditioning. And I remember it would occasionally get to, 105, 109. There may have been once when I was a kid when it hit 111. But the temperatures we're seeing now in the summer are so extreme. We did that Girl Scout hiking stuff, and that summer we didn't have a single hike that was below 80 degrees, and we went in the evenings. We had the one hike that was 100. That was our second hike. The first hike was in the spring, so it wasn't super warm. But the rest of our hikes were in the summer. And I think our next coolest hike was 80 degrees. And it was like 7 o'clock at night. We went for a hike in the evening, and it was hot. All of our hikes were hot. I think that's what made the 10 mile a little bit overwhelming and unpleasant.
So it's kind of really, climate change kind of turned air conditioning from it's nice, it's an expensive luxury, to you should probably have this if you don't want to overheat.
Yeah. Depending on where you live in the United States, we're not even the hottest state. But there are places that are warmer year round. Although there are places also where it's normally been warmer year round, where they've had ice storms the last couple of years. You can probably hear the air conditioning running, humming in the background.
Yeah, they're actively using theirs. We aren't as much.
We have ours set to like 80 degrees. So our goal is to cut the humidity and make it a little cooler, but not cold. So we spent all of winter going, oh man, it's so cold, I wish it was summer. And then once summer hits, we're like, oh man, it's so hot, I wish it was winter. We were getting pretty good at predicting weather when I was upper teen. But now it's
when I was
it could rain. We think it should rain. I mean, there are clouds and there's stuff coming in that should rain. But maybe it won't.
Most of my time in elementary, they were pretty decent about it.
Yeah, that's true. It really
was
has gotten weird in the last couple of years. And people are just like, I don't know if they're just ignoring it or they're in denial or...
It's most likely denial.
I think the division of the United States, the fact that, we are so divided, so split, has emphasized that there are a lot of regional mindsets and beliefs. It's not exclusively, because gerrymandering makes it possible for a minority group to actually take control. But there are very clear differences between the South culturally and, say, the Midwest culturally. That some of those divisions go back, over 100 years.
They go back.
They're influenced by the history of the people, the history of the area, the history of how it was settled, the history of the violence involved. And, I think that some of those regional differences have fed into that division. And that division makes it hard to make progress on things like meaningful change. So how was your food?
It was pretty good. I could have spread the mustard a bit more. It was all the mustard was in like one circular spot.
So for that bite, you got a lot of mustard, but
Yeah. Nowhere else got
my salad was good. My brat was a little dry, but it was grilled several days ago. So, all right. Well, thank you for joining us for food and conversation. Yeah. And we'll think of something interesting to talk about next time. Maybe something a little more light-hearted, because this one was a bit gloomy.
Yeah.
Thank you.